Well, welcome to the Followup podcast. My name is Hayden. I am the worship director here at Arbor Church, and today I'm joined by Alison, the community care pastor, not director, pastor.
Yes.
And also Bryan, who is a fellow director.
Hello, yes.
Bryan Cobley, our youth director. Student director is your official title. That was an inside joke because I accidentally referred to Alison on our graphics as a community care director.
There's no hierarchy here.
There's
We're all brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We're all the
You've
same.
done the work. You're a pastor.
we were trying to get our live stream up, and I think someone came out and they're like, Alison is listed as a director. And I was like, we have 15 other things. Yeah, you did that. I was like, we have 15 other things we got to figure
Bryan.
out.
I'll give you a raise.
You're welcome.
But I think like in between like the countdown ending and Michael getting up there, I was able to get a corrected slide to Jeff before we actually went live. So it was like
If that's the worst problem we have live streaming, I think we're doing all right.
misidentified. People are like, is she a pastor or director? I can't- Yeah, what
Right.
is
Did
she?
she get demoted?
So, Alison, you spoke this last Sunday. You grabbed the second chapter of 1 Thessalonians. Bryan went last week. Our through line, just as a refresher, the truths of then are the truths. You
There
save
are
me.
things that are true then that are still true
That's
today.
paraphrased. What is it, Bryan? Do you
Bryan,
have the
you go for
exact?
it.
The truths of then are the truths for today.
Okay.
The truths for then.
I think it's 4 and
What
4. I think the
truths?
truths for then are the truths for today.
I think that.
Yeah,
Four.
Yeah. 4.
I think there's a 4 in there.
Yeah, I think there's 2 4s. The truths for
Or
then.
The four truths of then.
Truth for today.
People are probably watching this and they're like, how are we still on this?
And why do we care?
Yeah, why do we care about this? That's
The
a great
truths
question.
that Paul wrote about are relevant for us today.
Yeah.
Right.
And Alison, you kind of landed your sermon on you had an interesting sermon because you used walk worthy, but in 2 different contexts through the lens of a pastor's heart and the church's part.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time understanding the pastor's heart because I'm not a pastor, so I was kind of like, I guess
Yeah,
I
we're
fall into the
directors.
church's part. Yeah, we're
as
directors.
directors,
so-
we don't really
Right.
understand.
Someday I'll mentor you in that
Okay.
when
Yeah.
you become a
Yeah,
pastor
thank
as
you.
well.
But I like that you stuck with walk worthy because I think your other options would have been like run righteously, and I would have been out on that, or jog justly. I would have probably been more okay with jog justly.
Sprint?
I don't know.
Spiritually.
Sprint spiritually. That's good. Yeah. So you had a ton of options, but you chose
Yeah.
walk. Before we get into, because I actually want to talk more about that language. I think that's actually. I assume that you thought about those 2 words a lot, but I think there's a lot to unpack there. What was like the first thing you took away when you read through that chapter when you were putting together your sermon?
Well, I first looked at the whole of the chapter and saw that there was a focus on Paul making his case to this little church that he was above board, trustworthy, and in all of these ways that these people could trust him. And he was really concerned about protecting the gospel, like the integrity of the gospel. And it struck me because I realized how important it is that the messenger be trustworthy so that the message can be trusted. So I don't think I've ever really thought too much about that. But in today's cancel culture and, we're so willing to take down messengers. I know that as soon as somebody... Sorry, zero tolerance on guns.
She just shot at me.
I know, sorry.
That gun was pointed at me.
No, but I mean, we have bookshelves full of authors that we don't read anymore because once we've discredited the messenger, we throw out their message. So anyhow, Paul was concerned that he had integrity, that that little church knew about his integrity, so that they would trust the gospel.
Yeah.
So then, later in the chapter, about 3/4 through, talks to them about, like, let the word or let scripture, this teaching, like, work in you. Let it have an effect and walk worthy.
Yeah.
So I thought it just kind of summed up, like, for the pastors, we've got to walk worthy. And for the people, they also are called to that too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Thanks, Hayden.
No problem. Did you
Did you like it too, Bryan?
I did.
It was great? Okay, good.
what do you really think, Bryan?
I actually thought it was a really good sermon. She did make fun of me in it, so I still have.
Oh, the 49ers fan?
Yeah.
Haven't gotten over it
And
yet.
that's, still, I
Hurts
got
a
some
little.
forgiveness to,
Yeah,
to work on.
some things you got to work on. We all do. Is there anything you had to cut out?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. This is like the first time it was like an emphatic yes.
Oh my gosh, I left
16
out
verses.
so many. I mean, not just verses, but anecdotes. So part of our goal in this series with live streaming in this season is we're trying to keep messages a little shorter because two things. We want to keep people in the building for a shorter amount
Yeah.
of time because #COVID. Like everybody stop, you can go out and stop holding your breath now.
Yeah.
But then for viewers at home, they're not necessarily wanting these really huge messages to wade through.
Mm-hmm.
So, I cut stuff out scripture-wise, but then anecdotes, just, I started trimming back as well.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to do that.
What was you had an opening anecdote, correct? Or somewhere near the beginning
Are
of
you
your
talking
sermon?
about the subtweeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I talked
Subtweeting.
about subtweeting.
Yeah.
Because this is discussing pastors and
Yeah.
because we're in between pastors here, senior pastors,
Yeah.
I just didn't want it to seem like I was trying to subtweet anyone.
Yeah. Well, and you had such a tight rope to walk this Sunday of not just throwing shade at people.
Right.
But also we have to acknowledge where we're at and where the church is at.
Yeah.
And to just ignore it completely would be dumb.
Right.
It would be so dumb to not acknowledge that at some amount, but I think it was helpful for everyone to know, like, this isn't just a hate message directed
No.
towards somebody, like
No.
this is and we'll get into the walk worthy, but it kind of goes into that of like, we all have work to do, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't matter how little or small, we all have work to do to walk worthy. And so
And correct me if I'm wrong, Alison, because listening to your sermon and listening to it twice, it did seem like as you were reading these verses and then creating a sermon, that you were also like using this as a measurement for yourself as a pastor, like checking, like, how are you doing? I think one of the things that I can remember is the verse 9, labored day and night, and you're like, oh my gosh, am I working night? But
Yeah.
this is a very personal question, and feel free to not answer it, but when you were looking at this, did you feel encouraged? Did you feel discouraged?
discouraged.
Discouraged? I was going to say disencouraged.
Yeah,
Disencouraged? Discouraged?
I would
like,
allow it.
Re-encouraged.
Yeah, so like, because I know you were
Invigorated.
definitely like looking at yourself with through
Yeah.
a microscope.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like pastor title that that qualifies like for this passage to do its work in us. I feel like anyone who is a leader in a faith organization, anyone who speaks spiritually or uses scripture to encourage others, like a small group leader or a Sunday school teacher, anybody who is in that position, I think needs to start with self-examination first. So yeah, I totally did. And I felt encouraged. I don't think I felt discouraged. I felt encouraged, like, no, it's worth having integrity because once you don't, people toss the gospel, and it's not worth it to be,
Yeah.
it's not worth it to lose that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an encouragement to me, like, stay the course, keep walking worthy, like, don't blow it.
But you didn't like create a checklist of like, I'm doing this, I'm not doing this.
Well, when the working day and night,
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, do I have to
Do I have to work nights?
work?
That's my family time.
I
Yeah.
can't.
For some people, that is work. Family life.
That is true.
It was a joke. I think you took it like
More
very-
work. I was like,
yeah.
oh dear.
Yeah.
Did I leave that out? Yeah. No, I figured anytime you meet at night, and so yes, I checked that box. But I am that way. I want to make sure, like, what does it mean to walk worthy, and am I doing that? I don't want to just be telling people to do it and then
Yeah.
not do it myself.
Yeah. So you had a lot that you had to cut out: scripture, anecdotes. Did you pick up walk worthy like right away, like when you first read through it, or was that like a second read through, kind of trying to figure out what God was speaking to you, speaking to the audience?
Yeah. And it just seemed to jump out at me once I saw Paul making a case for pastors and trustworthiness, and then to say, okay, what's the church's part?
Yeah.
I found it also interesting, something I deliberately left out. There's a chunk of verses in there. I think there are 3 or 4 verses towards the end of that chapter that most scholars say isn't really in keeping with Paul's, the tenor of the text, and that they don't even really know if that is Paul speaking.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I deliberately just picked that part out, and I thought, let's, that's subject for another time, probably.
You're talking about verse 17 through 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, because even in my own Bible, it gives it a heading, and it almost looks like it wants it to fit in with chapter 3. Paul's longing to see them again. Is what the
What
heading.
comes right before that?
Verse 16.
That was good, Brian. That was good.
Wow. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
By hindering us from speaking to the Gentiles that they might be saved, so as always to fill up the measure of their sins. But
Okay, that's the part. So the 3 verses that are immediately preceding that.
Yeah, 17 through 20. Right?
No, it's not the longing. It's the right before that. So did you say 16?
Yeah.
So what's 15?
Who killed both the Lord?
Exactly. So it's that section.
She knew right off of who killed.
Okay. Exactly.
That's it.
That one.
That's it.
Yeah, so that little chunk in there. So I dumped that out.
Yeah.
Does this say anything about cutting people off as they're reading scripture?
Be very meta.
Walk-worthy Alison.
Walk worthy, Allison. This is a question for both of you. I know when Bryan and I went to Bible college, and we did New Testament intro. We kind of identified we had to make like a little notebook about each book of the Bible. Do you remember, Bryan, what our theme or common thought was for 1 Thessalonians that we came across?
Not one bit.
Do you guys have any idea what the because like each Paul letter kind of has, I mean, most of the letters in the New Testament after Acts has like kind of a reason why the letter was being written. Do you guys do your
If I
research?
I think it's encouragement for Christ's return.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I had to guess, it is reminding them to keep up with the hope.
Yeah.
In waiting for Christ's return. I think almost every chapter talks about the
Yeah,
coming of
it
the Lord.
mentioned in mine that he would be coming back, and that Paul would be so proud of this little church. When Jesus came back, it'd be like, oh my gosh, you're our crown. You're our, you're our joy when he returns.
Yeah, so
That's
I think this
awesome.
one is all about keeping with the faith for Christ's return.
Yeah. And then 2 Thessalonians is like, keep waiting. I was way off on my estimate. I thought he'd be back like in a week.
Right.
Yeah,
didn't
well, I
realize
mean, if
he'd
you look
been-
at this, the judgment at Christ is coming. Stand firm.
Yeah.
Benediction.
Yeah.
Thief in the night, too, is in this, isn't it? Or no?
Man, you guys are asking me questions.
Maybe
that
not. Sorry. Stay tuned. Yet to
Yeah.
come.
You're a resident Bible scholar, Bryan.
Yeah.
We can have our fact checker take a
First
look at it before
Thessalonians
the end of
ends
the...
with greet all the brothers with a holy kiss. So.
Before COVID, I would say
That-
yes.
Yeah, not
But
advisable
during
right
COVID,
now.
yeah. I apologize to any of my brothers in Christ that I have not been kissing. But what?
Just love the way you said that.
I did too. So I think that's actually like an interesting thought as well of like we are going through a season where we could very easily and probably get a free pass from a lot of people to not be the church that, Paul would look at and say like, oh, Arbor is a great example of how a church should operate. But I feel like our encouragement during this time, especially coming from this letter, is like, no, we're going to keep this going. Like we're still going to be pushing through all of the wreckage, and we're not going to take that free pass and just be like, all right, well, once we're ready to be Arbor again, we'll be Arbor, Like that the sermon series went through of like still Arbor, like we've gone through a lot, and we're going to go through some more, but we're going to stay on the path. We're going to walk worthy. So
it is kind of cool that this church is, staying strong like we looked at last week, even when there is questions about leadership. Because, if you think about it, Paul, when he wrote this letter, has been away from this church for weeks.
Yeah.
Like, definitely weeks. And throughout all of that, his name is being kind of just tainted.
Yeah.
And they're standing firm. It's like a clear example that Paul is not their savior. Like, Paul may have shared the message, but they're not there. They're not standing strong for Paul. They're standing strong for the return of Christ. So it's kind of cool that, he's defending his name. But, who knows how long his name has kind of been tossed around in the dirt. But he's defending it, saying he was like a mom. He was like a father. But in the end, it doesn't matter who he is, because everything is about Christ.
Yeah.
Such a good reminder for Arbor, right? Everything is about Christ.
Yeah.
So it's not about who's in the pulpit or who's, running point on leadership here. So, I think it's a really sanctifying, kind of purifying little season we're in. It redefines, why are you here? What is a faith community?
My cliff notes on my Bible at the end of this book, they said they cut out a portion of what Paul said about go ahead and wear your masks. 25% capacity is going to be okay for now. It's going to be just a season. But they didn't think it was relevant. Who knew that it was going to be so relevant for us?
Totally.
Yeah.
Until now, we thought it was prophetic literature.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah. But
it's come true.
He's a prophet, man.
Beautiful.
He looks so uncomfortable right now, Bryan.
Yeah, can we say a word about the masks? So,
okay.
Yeah, speaking with a mask, earrings,
Oh, my
glasses,
gosh.
and a little mic. You
Yeah.
guys probably.
It's
Well,
pretty
you have
difficult.
glasses.
I do have glasses, yeah.
Don't wear your earrings.
Yeah, don't put your earrings in. Don't put your diamond studs back in.
I do have one ear that is still, I can still put an earring in. I pierced it when I was in 8th grade.
You better not fall asleep around me.
It is never closed up.
You're going to wake up with a big hoop earring or a feather earring.
I would wear that.
You would look
I
you
would
look pretty good with a
I would
feather
look
earring.
good. Do you think people would take me serious?
I would take you more serious.
Dude, preaching in mass though, no joke.
I can't imagine what that's like. We're singing is difficult.
Especially when you have hiccups.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. If anyone, I know nobody watches second service because everyone's in on first service, but second service, at the end of the service, I got up and I made it through about 75% of the first song. We're supposed to do 2. And I felt, because I drank water too fast or something, just hiccups started to come.
I was so worried about you. I
Yeah.
didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah.
I was starting to pray for you. I
Yeah.
didn't know if you were sick
Yeah.
or not feeling well.
I wasn't doing well up there, that's for sure. I just felt them, and
It's
there's
still on
nothing you can
YouTube
do.
if anybody wants to watch
Yeah, it's still on YouTube if you want to watch me struggle through So Will I.
Dude, do you remember all those videos we watched of people doing some embarrassing stuff during worship?
Yeah.
We can post yours. We can submit yours.
At first, I thought they were just you were stylistically changing things up because
Yeah.
it was adding a rest
Yeah.
into each measure. And I was like, this is so interesting.
Well,
I've
yeah.
never heard
I'm
it this
feeling
way.
it.
Yeah. If I had a jazz background, I could spin it off that way. Be I was just doing jazz up there, guys. I
Right.
was adding in, breaths and breaths there. So I was kind of doing a syncopated rhythm.
I failed. This was God saying, Bryan, this is your time. This is your time to lead worship for Arbor.
I would have,
And
yeah.
I stayed.
Well, if you hadn't been chatting out in the foyer,
Whoa!
Yeah.
you could have taken that.
I was chatting in the chat section of the online
were
campus.
you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just, I talk out loud.
I see.
Ha ha. Hiccups.
The funny thing is I've seen you type, and you're a lot more proficient than
Thanks,
that.
man.
That was that's how I type. That's not how you type.
No, you do this.
Oh, do I? I just peck at the keys.
Okay, so
yeah,
this
back to the message.
Sorry,
Yeah.
this reminds me of something I did cut out.
Oh, wow.
Paul talks about when he was hanging out with the Thessalonians that they
I I was gonna let that go, but I thought that was
too
funny.
good.
That was good.
He was saying that they were like brothers and sisters, and it did remind me of our podcast because we
Yeah.
kind of hang out here
Yeah.
and we're just who we are, which I think builds trust, and
Yeah.
it's an authentic relationship
Yeah.
that people get to join in with.
Yeah. I
every
love when like people come back through the building or we get into conversation and people will reference like bits or things that we said on the podcast, because that's the whole point of this is obviously to dive deeper into the message and to be able to talk more about the message, because we're shortening them a little bit for online. But the hidden purpose is like you would get to know us more, and that we could have this time of like, yeah, we would love if you guys were all sitting out here listening to us right now, but like you can do this in your car, you can do this at home, like if you're doing dishes or whatever, like you can be a part of us.
Yeah.
And when you guys comment or talk to us in person, it's like, cool, this is like having a conversation with, you know, this person or that person here in the building. So I love this podcast, and it's fun to chat with you guys, but also it's awesome that people in the congregation can have some sort of connection with us and with each other. So yeah. You look like you got something, Brian.
No, I'm just reading.
You like the Bible a lot.
I do.
Allison, do you want to address these bricks at all?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I loved the imagery of the brick.
Yeah,
Did
the
you
bricks
like the
was
bricks?
good.
I was so
Yeah.
confused because
Originally?
when we came here, I just seen bricks, and I'm like, okay, so obviously she's gonna use these bricks as illustration, and then I'm listening to the sermon, I'm like,
Where
okay,
are the bricks?
What's the bricks for? She's not even talking about the bricks.
Classic.
Just gonna
Classic
hold this
Alison.
brick up until it's been addressed.
So,
Also, good weight. It's a good weight.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's real
it
brick.
is a real one.
It's real brick.
You use these. in
It
your
dawned
message.
on me. So Paul's talking a lot about his trustworthiness in handling the gospel, and I started thinking about how many times faith leaders disappoint us, or we might have church wounds, and or pain from a church leader, and how it can land like a brick in our hearts or in our minds. And then I thought of how many can accumulate and build up like a wall. And I think it's verse 17. Our fact checker can check. Talks about hearing God's call.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, if you have so many bricks in your heart or in your mind, you may not actually hear him calling you, right? Or like it also can block you from other people, like in a faith family. So anyhow, it just, for me, it felt like a good reminder for a pastor to not heap a brick onto anybody, but also that if we end up with bricks accumulating and we feel hard-hearted or heavy-hearted, like the Lord can also take care of those and dissolve them and get rid of them.
Because there's a lot of times when pastors don't even realize they put a brick on somebody.
Right.
Because a lot of times people hold on to it and just keep it.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of rare when somebody will actually say, "Hey, here's this brick back. This is what you did to me."
Yeah.
Which I mean, if those watching, I know, please, if any one of us on staff ever do anything to give you a brick, please return it to us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think what's so beautiful about this like idea of a brick, right? Like something happening, and we're getting a brick laid on us, right? I don't think anyone intentionally decides to put a brick on another person, right? And I think about our whole conversation about cancel culture, right? Like leaders who do something, and that in many ways their actions can be like a brick, and we talk about like, oh, we toss their messages out or we toss their books out. But I think what's like also God working is like this can be helpful for a season, right? I'm not going to have to be facing you, right? Like if someone has done harm, this is kind of blocking me a little bit from you, and I know that I can come back.
So like protection.
Exactly. Once I've worked through this, God still worked through you, right? Like we talk about all the time, like should we throw books out by pastors who have had things that go wrong?
Right.
No, God was still working through them, right? Like God still had great things to say through that person. But sometimes it is going to be hard to read that book, right? But why can't I come back to it a couple years later when I can really move this brick out? But this wall forming it's a coping mechanism, but it's also healthy for a season, right? It's not healthy to keep these walls up forever.
Right.
But sometimes you need that protection. You need that
Mm-hmm.
barrier, that boundary of, I know that God was working through you
Mm-hmm.
and you still had good things to say, but I can't hear it right now from you.
One of the things I don't think I sold this in the message, but I did think you can stack bricks and they
Yeah.
can accumulate, but they don't all cement. Like
No.
right now, like the way that I had stacked them in the
Yeah.
message, there was no cement involved.
Yeah.
And I did think about how things can harden over time and
Yeah.
how it could become more permanent
Yeah.
if we're not careful.
Yeah.
So like I can much easier kick over a pile of bricks
Yeah.
that are not cemented together.
Mm-hmm.
But these things came up even in this week. We have a small group that's
Mm-hmm.
starting. Have you heard any of the Dave Ramsey stuff going on?
Yeah.
So Dave Ramsey.
Oh, something's
have
been
you?
going on with Dave Ramsey?
Recently, he has not been like the kindest person in social media, and there's kind of a cancel culture moving in his
Oh, no.
direction right now.
I mean, I think Dave Ramsey's always told it as it is.
Yeah, he's been a
Yes,
very
he's
blunt guy,
continuing
yeah.
to do that, and he's being met with some opposition right
Yeah.
now. So meanwhile, last week, I'm getting groups ready to get launched, and Financial Peace University is
Yeah.
one of our groups.
Yeah.
And I stopped for a minute and I thought, okay, are we at the point now where he is a stumbling block for like,
Mhm.
should we be offering his course? Should
Yeah.
we? I don't want to jump on a bandwagon and cancel
Yeah.
people, but I also want to be mindful that like, has he earned the right to speak into our
Yeah.
lives? You know, do we want his influence? So it's just an interesting thing. As it turns out, I just went ahead and I think his decades of good work in
Yeah.
this financial area have warranted him to speak into our lives
Yeah.
this trimester. But I'm also watching him just like hoping that he doesn't lose the message or
Yeah.
lose the right to have a message
Yeah.
because he's, you know,
Well, I think it also,
fallen off
yeah.
the weird.
And it comes down to also like respecting other people's bricks, right? We're going with this analogy, but some people love that about Dave Ramsey. I'm not particularly someone who's like, yeah, tell it as it is, like just go for it, no apologies. But some people like that, and I think it's respecting the fact that like if you have that brick there from that person, like that is okay. I'm able to read, this book even though this all happened, but I think it's very complex, right? Because things affect people differently, but it's also just respecting the fact that some people are going to be like, I don't care. Like Dave Ramsey, that's who I like. That's why I like Dave Ramsey. Or some people are like, I don't want it.
Yeah, the material we're using is financial planning versus like kindness culture. Like he is instructing us on some things that
I don't know if you would ever teach a class about. I don't think you would ever opt to teach that.
Yeah, so probably we would say maybe anyhow.
Be like Andy
Context.
Stanley offering a class on short and concise messages. Like,
Andy Stanley does do short and concise. What?
that's not what you told me.
What?
Because we were talking about Andy Stanley, and I was like, Andy keeps it short, and you're like, not 25 minutes. And I was like, I thought he was shorter. Maybe he's not. Maybe you were speaking falsely at that moment.
No, I mean, again, I think I said it depends on what you're listening to him
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I've never actually jumped on a North Point Sunday.
Neither have I. I've only seen him at Catalyst.
Ever?
Well, I've watched him online, but
Okay.
like in terms of like being. Oh, you were talking about North Point online.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, now I'm tracking with you.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like I've never been to North Point for a sermon. Be like, yeah, that's like a
no.
Christian tourism thing. Like we're going to Atlanta. We're gonna get like the original Chick-fil-A. We're gonna see the Mercedes-Benz dump.
Chick-fil-A.
and then we're gonna go see North Point. Like we got our tickets. We're lined up. We're gonna be out there early.
Tickets.
He's gonna sign our Bible.
I mean, I have been to a church in the Midwest where when we as it was a Bible college. We as a group showed up. Somebody with a headphone said, "Oh, can we reserve you some seats?" And we're like, I think we can find our seats. No. Let me get you some seats. And they like talked to somebody. And they took us up like 6 escalators to go to our reserved seats. Yeah.
What church was that?
Well,
I was just more curious. I was more curious
I'm not
about
gonna
the.
say the church.
I didn't want you to
name.
badmouth them, but I was just curious about the 6 escalators. That's insane.
Yeah, it was a lot of escalators.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
like
I don't-
Arbor.
yeah.
I like Arbor and her
I
at the
don't-
top
I-
of
yeah.
our icky little stairs.
I didn't feel like you were bad mouthing them.
It could have come
and it
across that way. So.
But it probably wasn't even their church. It was probably like the production company that rolls through with Andy Stanley.
it wasn't Andy Stanley's church.
That's what I'm saying. It was probably like someone from Andy Stanley's crew that manages.
No,
the
this
events.
wasn't an Andy Stanley sermon. This wasn't Andy Stanley. This was a regular Sunday.
Oh,
at
then
this
you were
church.
bad mouthing them.
This was a regular.
I thought you were saying Andy Stanley came.
No,
to
this
that
was a
church.
regular church on the Sunday.
Because didn't you go to like a what is that deep and wide or whatever that Andy
that
Stanley
would have been
thing?
good.
Was it Deep and Wide? Yeah.
Yeah, you
that-
went to deep and wide. I thought
Also in the Midwest.
that's why.
But
I
yeah,
got
no,
confused.
that church was one floor.
Okay. I don't know why
How
we're
did
getting
we get there?
we're getting lost in the weeds so easily today. I'd like to talk about walk worthy, unless you two have anything before we kind of get to the meat and potatoes of this message. Brian, anything?
No, we're already 26 minutes in.
Hoo-wee!
Pretty pooper.
So let's get to the meat and
Yeah,
potatoes of the message.
I really liked that, and I thought about it. So, like for context, I'm like behind the scenes for a lot of the, I guess, Sunday service stuff, right? So before we went live streaming, I was video editing everything together. So I would like get to hear everyone's messages and kind of cut camera angles and add slide elements. But now that we're going live, I'm now getting your manuscript and I'm making your slides so that we can put it on the live stream. And when I first read Walk Worthy, I was like, okay, I'm not tracking with it yet, but I'll have to like hear it, you know. I thought it was a good point, but I didn't capture the full amount of it. And then when you preached, I heard it again and I thought to myself, wow, this works on like a lot of different levels, right? Because it's a super simple thing to say, walk worthy, right? That could just mean, I think for some people it could be frustrating because it's like, that's vague. You're not giving me, what are my steps, you know? Like the steps would be go back and read the scripture that it comes from. But if you're looking for me to do all the work, it's not going to happen, right? Walk worthy. But then as I thought about it more, and even on my drive in here today to do the podcast, I was thinking about how walk worthy, the verb walk implies so much companionship between ourselves and God. Because Bryan and I have gone running before, and I know when I run with Bryan, like I'm holding him back. Like he could run much faster. He could probably get another lap in on the track before I'm done with my first lap. But we've ran together, and I know like there's this pressure on me of like I need to speed up, or Bryan's going to get less of a workout and he has to slow down. But I think about like with walking, you're not too worried about the speed, right? The unless you're a speed walker, more power to you. But when you're walking with somebody, it's companionship, right? There's room for conversation. There's room for let's match each other's stride. Let's walk together. And if you need to stop, like I'll stop with you, right? And if you need encouragement, if you need a little, hand on the back, let's walk a little bit faster, like that is there. So what I loved about Walk Worthy was at first it felt kind of cold and like you need to do this. But what it implies, and at least what I assume it implies, is walk worthy with God, right? Do this whole thing together with him. And you're going to have to do some work, but God's also going to do quite a bit of the work in you along that walk. And it's that cheesy image of, I won't call it cheesy because some people really like it, but to me, it feels cheesy. The whole footprints in the sand, right? You know where I was going? Like, then there was only one set of footprints. So, but I do like that idea of like, we call it our walk, right? Our walk of faith or our walk with Christ. There's a lot that you can unpack on in just the word walk, right? Because it implies so much. We do it all the time.
Such a daily thing.
Yeah.
Daily.
So I really loved it afterwards because I thought not only when you said a pastor's heart and the church's part, like we're walking together as a church, right? We all have our own individual walks with God, but then we also have a walk as a community and as a church of let's make this commitment together and like let's be accountable to each other. And there's gonna be portions where we're walking together, and then there's gonna be parts of our lives where we're walking separately. But as long as we commit to that, I think there's a lot of beauty. There's a lot of sanctification, right? There's so much that comes from that. So I really appreciated Walk Worthy and how it was like kind of a surprise. You're like Walk Worthy for a pastor's heart, and then you use the same thing for the church's part, which I thought was just great.
A linchpin.
A
whatever
linchpin.
that was.
And you looked it up, right? For a wagon wheel?
I had to make sure that I was using the term correctly,
Yeah.
but I just felt like we're all in this together,
Yeah.
pastors and people. Like
Yeah.
we're just in this together. I loved all the family language as
Yeah.
well. I felt like Paul really, I don't know, just
Yeah.
felt more equitable, relational, intimate. Somebody I would want to be with. The Paul that
For
I
sure.
would want to be with,
Yeah.
is like, I'm like this. I'm
Yeah.
gentle.
Mhm.
I'm a father coach.
Yeah.
I'm your brother.
Yeah. Have you guys made it through? I know this is a.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I know what
you're
he's going to
do.
say, and no.
You haven't,
No.
Bryan? Have you?
No. I just want to see. I'm going to try and finish
Yeah.
your thought to see if I'm
Yeah.
correct. I still have only watched episode 1.
Of The Chosen?
Is that what we're talking about?
I knew it. I knew it.
Come on, man.
We put your brick to the side, Bryan. You can watch The Chosen. Okay, you can watch The Chosen. But one of my favorite scenes, you guys got to get to this episode, is where Jesus turns water into wine, and then they have this
What
like
episode
feast.
number is it?
I can't remember. I watched
It was like 4.
4.
Have you watched it?
I finished it.
Oh, I thought you
Remember, I
said
had
That
a
was-
medal.
Yes.
I was the second place.
Yeah.
I thought Michael
I got
was second
first place.
I think Michael was second.
No.
No.
I was. I had a silver medal, didn't I?
I don't remember getting
Yeah, but
medals.
after Michael. You got your own medal. You bought yourself a medal or grabbed your
I
own
know
medal.
I got my silver medal because I know I was number 2.
I'm pretty sure you're bronze.
That's
There's
okay.
not a chance I have a bronze. No.
Here's
I
the
was
deal,
silver.
though. If you're bronze, Bryan's not even medaling. He's not even going to get a medal.
I didn't even qualify.
He didn't even qualify.
I have the medal at home. I'll look for it.
Pulling us out
Bought
of
yourself a medal.
No, I dug it out of the attic.
pulling ourselves out of the weeds that we find ourselves in so easily today. That scene after Jesus turns the water into the wine, and then he hangs out with the family, and they just have a feast and a part. Like they dance, they have fun, they just talk. I remember talking about that. It was the first time where like I was like, man, I would love to hang out with Jesus, right? Like I think that when I think about my relationship with Jesus and who Jesus is, I think of like the aspect of him being our savior, him being a teacher, like you said, a father, a coach. But I'd never been like, man, it would be so much fun. Like I would have fun hanging out with Jesus. That never crossed my mind. I don't think we talk about like the fun aspect of who Jesus is, because he was a guy as well. Like he had fun. He had friends. He had 12 of them at least, you know? But to me as a 7, like that's what kind of rings true, is like, am I going to have fun with this? With
That's so funny to think of Enneagram and
Yeah.
how you could do that. And for me, I'm like, he brings so much peace,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
comfort.
To
And
me,
you-
it brings a way of living.
Because you're
way
you're
to
a
do
1, right?
things.
Wow. Do we project ourselves onto Jesus?
He's every Enneagram number.
I am.
Yes.
Wow.
You see someone make a mistake and do it the wrong way, and you're just sitting there like, wait till
Fours
Jesus
just look
tells
at
him.
Jesus
Yeah.
as being just super unique.
He's so different than
He's so
everyone
different than everybody.
else. No, but when we were talking about the different aspects, when I watched that, I was like, wow, I would have fun hanging out with Jesus, right? Besides just like the peace, the contentness, like Jesus had fun. And I'm excited to have fun with Jesus and fun with all of you guys and everyone that I know, like having like a feast, having a dancing party with Jesus.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing I wish, if I could go back and do the message again, I would have emphasized a little more that it's not so much like how great Paul or pastors are
Yeah.
or spiritual leaders are. It's like, how great is God?
Yeah.
How great is Jesus that he is all of those things, right? All of those descriptions
Yeah.
are him. And that's like where the really cool beauty is. It's not that Paul was, all that, and we could all be like, oh, I wish my pastor was more like Paul. It's more like, no, this is Jesus.
I was just thinking about how Paul had the opposite relationship that a lot of churchgoers have with their pastor, where usually, not everybody, I don't want to like be rude, but a lot of people that go to churches will send letters of feedback to the pastor, whereas Paul was like, no, I'm going to send you guys a letter. I'm going to write you an email.
That's a good point.
Like a lot of a lot of congregants
Put the mouse down.
type
it's
up.
my
Yeah.
turn.
They're like, I really didn't like that
I have
song.
a connection card for you.
So if anyone says they would have really loved Paul as a pastor, I'd be curious to see if they would like those letters addressed.
Well, it's
First,
funny.
Bryan. Trust me, buddy. There's 10 more coming. You got a lot of issues.
That is awesome.
That's not Pauline. That's not Pauline at all.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely see a different Paul as the churches grow
Yeah.
and move on. He does get a little like, this is the way it is. But I think to this little church,
Yeah.
he was soft-hearted, tender, and just, he just loved them.
Let's hope we're more of a church of Philippi, not a church of Corinth.
I don't. Yeah,
Church
We'll
of Corinth
see.
got some
Yes.
some scathing.
and I love how Paul calls it out in the middle of the
Yeah.
congregation too.
Yeah. So you like it when Paul does it, but not Dave Ramsey? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I think could we do that in today's day and age? Like, and so you in the third row.
I'm sorry, Alison. That was a joke. Bryan made it more awkward by just staring the whole time. I was just joking.
All right, Bryan. You were gonna say something.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about how going back to the worthy.
Yeah.
I was looking for it in 1 Thessalonians again to see like when he talks about walking worthy, because I know one of my favorite verses is in Ephesians. When he talks about
Ephesians
that.
4.
Would you say it's your life verse?
It's not my life verse.
Is it?
Okay.
No,
Oh,
actually, kind of. I have a lot of life verses.
Mm.
The 1 Timothy, the don't let anybody look down at your youthfulness, but this is the one I've probably preached Ephesians 4 more than any verse in Scripture.
Ephesians 4.
Yeah, but Ephesians 4, as he says here, walk worthy. I was wondering, does he explain what that means like he does in Ephesians? So to help everybody who's like what you said, okay, how do you walk worthy?
Yeah, it's
but
kind
if
of
they
vague.
listened to the sermon, they would have known that. I did quote that.
You did quote Ephesians
Yeah,
4.
remember that part?
Yeah, I do.
I think you had to cut that for time.
But for those, would you like to read it again?
No, go ahead. No
Okay.
glasses here.
For those who didn't listen to the sermon, in Ephesians 4, Paul writes, I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.
What's your life verse, Alison?
Jeremiah 31:3. I have drawn you. Wait, how does it go?
Is that the roots in the spring again?
No, darn it. I just drew a blank.
Jeremiah.
The second part is, therefore I've drawn you with loving kindness. And I just love that I could picture him drawing me, like sketching me, even though I know what it means. It's like drawing you with loving kindness.
Jeremiah
I also,
what?
31:3. Therefore I have loved you with an everlasting love.
Wow, 31 is huge.
It's a lot of good content in there. 31:3, Bryan.
I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I've drawn you with loving kindness.
You want me to read it? This is the ESV version.
No, not ESV. Don't read that to me.
That's Bryan's favorite.
How about you? What's your life verse?
I can't
She
remember.
really doesn't
yeah.
want me to read
Yeah.
the ESV. Cancel culture.
Bryan, open up to Romans. I'm terrible. I know that I can say the verse. I just forget the reference number.
Okay.
Just chapters. They weren't there originally in the manuscripts.
Yeah, that was like a man,
I don't follow that.
A
It's-
man
yeah.
riding a donkey's put it all on.
Yeah, I don't. You guys can totally use chapters and verses. I don't. So
OG.
yeah, I'm OG like that. It's the therefore, brothers and sisters, I urge you to present yourself as a
12:1.
12:1.
I'm going to go with 12:1.
Therefore,
I appeal to you, therefore,
appeal to
brothers,
you.
by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. That one?
this is your personal act of worship.
Worship director.
Yes, it is.
And that's what I used for my worship thesis in college. That worship is not music; it's your walk with Christ. But
Walk.
it's easy to do music together as a congregation. It's kind of hard to have a conversation with everybody and say, "How's your walk going? How's
Right.
your act of worship going?" You know?
Right.
But We can get together and sing praise songs, and that's why we do it. But I will beat that drum probably till I'm dead of
Love that.
worship is not music.
Love
Beat
that.
the drum.
And
Beat the drum.
and this is a great season to teach us with
Yeah.
COVID because we're not,
Yeah.
singing isn't
Yeah.
recommended.
And there's I always have to make this case because I guess I just have to, but I do love music. Like I love playing music. I love listening to music. I love worship music. It's definitely probably the one thing. Like when I'm in the car listening to it, I feel closest to God is during music because I think that art and music is so beautiful, and the fact that like we can take something that's so like secular in nature, like art can be very secular, and so can music, but we can make it about God. I think it kind of mends two of my favorite worlds, So, but I am a fan of musical worship because I feel like the more I talk about it, people are like, "Oh, so you don't like musical worship?" I'm like, "No, I love it.
Right.
I just think it's corporate worship can be some of the more shallower forms of worship because there's so much more depth in other areas. But there is a nostalgia factor, right? Like some of us grew up going to church and singing as a congregation. And this season, a lot of us are missing standing next to each other or 6 feet apart from each other and singing worship songs together and praising. And also there's a verse in the Bible that says, raise your voice to the Lord, so.
Do you guys totally off topic, but on your topic, but not topic of this. I didn't grow up in church.
Yeah.
My form of worship was an infomercial as
Really?
a kid of like a hand was on like the CD.
Yeah.
Like the CDs, but you can get like 12 CDs.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's where I heard, here I am to worship. But that's all I knew because then it would jump to the next song where it just went through different songs. So when I started going to church and they sang the songs, I'm like, that's number 12 on disc 2.
I know this one.
Well, there's classic songs that I played from like my freshman year in high school to like my senior year of college that are just like, and I heard them as a kid just like hitting me over and over again. Like, here I am to worship. What's the one? I'm coming back to the heart. Yeah, that one.
Wow.
How great is when you said that? I like immediately imagined like where my fingers go on the fretboard because I just played it so many times, and a song I don't know if we'll ever come back to. It's really
Oceans.
good.
Amazing Grace.
Well, Oceans, I will. I'm done with Oceans.
We're not
Yeah.
cancel culturing these
No.
songs, by the way.
I'll play guitar on Oceans and let someone else sing it, but I'll never lead that song again unless something changes.
Never say never, man.
Never say never.
As soon
But
as you say never, you have to do it.
The song that I've heard a couple times, and I'm like, I don't really have a desire to hear this anymore, but it was so big when I was first learning guitar, was Revelation song.
Oh, yeah.
You like
But
that
you
song?
know what? These were
Love that
like
song.
They were amazing. And they still are. They
amazing.
still
It just
are.
got overplayed. But
Exactly.
but
yeah.
they are amazing.
Yes. We should probably wrap up.
We should probably.
What were
At
you going to
some
say, Alison?
point, we need to hear the song that you wrote. You have not performed that here at Arbor, so we're gonna have
You
to.
did put it on a graphic one time.
I did on a sermon.
Bumper.
Yeah. Because it was the easiest
Oh,
song to
because
get
you
rights
own
to.
the rights to it.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't have to worry about copyright.
Love
So
it.
I did get like an email saying, hey, someone's using your music. And I was like, yeah, it was me. And I just pressed approve. So,
Nice.
but
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
figure out how to. I
It's
don't know.
actually
Showcase
a
that
really
sometime.
good song.
Yeah, it totally is.
mm.
A really good song.
It's
Yeah,
next-
so hopefully we don't play that song.
We can get the
But
band back together.
The band back together, all the people.
We have a lot to look forward to. Someday there will be a band back here.
Oh
and
gosh, yeah.
wall-to-wall people.
Yeah.
And
I just got a text back today, and it was so hard to write back. Like, we can't have a band yet, but we will. And as much as
We
I
will.
want, yeah. I remember when we recorded Christmas Eve, having a band. We were distanced because there's only 4 of us, but like drums and piano together. Because it's been a lot of me and piano and singing, but to kind of have drums back in the mix. And then the person that texted me plays electric guitar, and I was like, oh, then get that involved as well. Like it's going to be great when we get back to
Yeah.
that spot. But it's soon, right? There's
we're
an end
heading in the
sight.
right
Yeah.
direction,
Baby
and that's
steps,
baby steps.
6 months ago, we didn't even know what the end was.
Ugh.
But now that we have an end in sight.
Can't
Why are you putting
wait.
the brick back up? What happened?
Just feel like COVID put a brick on me.
Oh. You need to have a conversation with COVID and let them know.
give my brick back.
Hey,
to
you
COVID.
gave this to me. I'm not okay with it. COVID doesn't care though. Bring it back. All right, so this Sunday
Yeah.
is
Scott
Hetherington.
Yep.
And he's taking chapter 3.
Yep.
Do you think
Awesome.
we're gonna get him on the podcast?
I hope we do. I think we can. Because we're not doing this early in the morning like we thought we might at some point, but we can get him in here. We can talk. That'll be fun. I love when Scott's on the podcast.
He's a lively one.
He is he is very different from Sunday morning to hanging out with people. He's just a blast, and
Yeah.
he's so smart and has a lot of good things to say. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, he's great.
So we're gonna do that, but this Sunday, people are gonna be listening to this Wednesday morning or later. That means if you're listening to this now, if you are cool with coming back into the building, go to our website, RSVP. We
Is it
still
on
have
the
spots
is
open
it
for
on the
both
website?
services.
Yep.
What's the link? Yeah, is it like super long?
I think when you go to our first page, it's
Okay.
got like you can visit on campus or online.
Oh,
like you
cool.
can watch services on campus or online.
Cool.
So just click on into the
Yeah,
online or on campus.
on
thing.
campus. Yeah. So if you want to meet in person, sign up, bring a mask, be ready for some in-person service. It's gonna be fun. Are you RSVPing right now, Brian?
There is a button that says church online and in person. I'm
Nice.
gonna click in person. Reopening. RSVP 9 a.m. RSVP 11 a.m.
Awesome. And are we just doing one open slot, or are we doing overflow stuff yet?
So we're gonna see if we can make a little family room over
Yeah.
in the orchard.
Yep.
So, God willing, we will.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
case you don't want to sit in here with everybody else with your kids, if you want to hang out with other families, you can go
Yeah.
to the orchard. And then awesome.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm really excited for it.
It's kind of fun to be part of these little historical milestones because then
yes.
you're like, I remember the time COVID started lifting and
Yeah.
like we
So
First Sunday
many
back.
milestones.
yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Like it was get to
many
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Now since the new year, all of January has been like we just got to work to be able to go live stream. We got live stream up. Now it's like we got to have people in the building. And then after that, we're just going to get our senioritis on and just take a victory
Can I
lap
pat
and-
us on the
and
back
chill.
super fast?
Yeah, go
Just
for it.
as I just think it's amazing that no matter with all that has been happening, we were only a month behind on getting people
Yeah.
here. And that's with COVID spiking and
Yep.
all. I mean, there's just been a lot of things, lots of bricks that we
Yeah.
could have gotten stumbled in our way.
Yeah.
And God just saw a way to move us through that.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting. It's a
Yeah.
good time to be Arbor.
And it really hasn't felt like we've been pushing uphill. Like there's been challenges and some late nights, but like it hasn't been like none of us are going to collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we might all take naps after.
Well, I just
January.
had 2 cups of coffee in the
Yeah, you're good.
afternoon. So
Yeah.
Sunday naps are back.
Sunday naps are back.
Sunday
naps
are,
are
a
back.
thing.
Yeah. So, all right, this is
Good.
dragged on for way too long. So, thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next week.